Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SGWomen Leaders Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more who represent our community all around the world. This month's SGWomen Month is proudly presented by Google for Startups and Silicon Valley Bank.
All right, hello and welcome to Startup Grind Grand Rapids. We are in the middle of SG Women's Month, and every year, Startup Grind, we host our SG Women Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women all over the world. We are a global organization, and we're dedicated to helping break down barriers to access to entrepreneurship. We're especially sensitive to the issues of gender equity as we help build ecosystems across the globe. Here in the US, we have different types of equity that entrepreneurs and individuals run up against. So in the US, we certainly tackle those issues, but this month is dedicated to the idea of spreading access to gender equity and bringing about gender equity. I just held an event last week with Celestine Upere from outside Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya. She's the chapter director over there, and she spoke of a public program in response to COVID-19 that's funding women entrepreneurs, women-owned small businesses specifically, to proactively address the fact that women are disproportionately affected by the economic effects of the pandemic. We have different regions across the state of Michigan. We have different organizations in Michigan and also in the US that are doing similar things. And as I've been taking this tour around the globe every week and interviewing different chapter directors around the planet, it's exciting to see what different regions are doing to tackle this challenge for parity and equity across the globe. So all of these conversations can be found on the Startup Grind Grand Rapids website. That's startupgrind.com/grand-rapids, including the conversation we're having tonight. And tonight's panel is about female leadership and entrepreneurship in Michigan. Specifically, we have 3 women in 3 different stages in their entrepreneurship journey with their current firms. All 3 of these women have significant experience and interest in starting business and operating businesses. And we're going to be hearing about some of their backgrounds as we get started right now. So quickly, we're going to run around the 3 entrepreneurs we have on our panel. I'll start in order of what kind of the newness of their idea and enterprise. And we'll get like a nice maybe 2 to 5 minute introduction on maybe like who they are, why they are, and what they're working on right now. So Freshta, maybe you could enlighten us on maybe a bit about your personal background and then the inspiration for starting this business that you're in, and tell us a little bit about it.
Great, thank you so much, Corey. Hi guys, thank you so much for your time and making time to watch this. Like Corey said, my name is Freshta and I just finished my sophomore year at Calvin University. I'm from Afghanistan, and you know, during the pandemic when the schools shut down and everyone had to move out of the dorms, I was watching the news daily, and I found out how hard it was for the homeless with the pandemic and how the shelters were closed down. They didn't have any access to the resources that, you know, most of us have. And so it just inspired me just seeing their situation, and I wanted to do something for them. So I started to make masks for them, and eventually it turned into an online store. So now I make masks and other products that can be purchased by customers, and most of that profit goes towards helping the homeless.
It was an incredible story. I heard a little bit about what you were doing from a news clip that was covering your business. So, and that's how I then reached out to you, and I'm really grateful for the generosity of your time and talking with us. So it's also interesting how like this pandemic has given a lot of people, the globe, time, right? Some call it the great pause. And us as entrepreneurs, when we are given time, Freshta's example is like, now I got time to do what I've wanted to do all along. So it's go time, right? Next, I'd like to introduce Kim Levine. Really excited to have you with us, especially for the short history that you and I have, and the great respect I have for what you're doing. So maybe a little introduction on you and what you're involved in.
Well, thank you, Corey. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be part of Startup Grind. I encourage anybody who's listening to this to join the community. It's dramatic. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years and I still learn every day from Startup Grind, and it's a great community, and Corey's a great director. And make sure you get to the global conference out in Silicon Valley, which we did last year, or this year. I'm a critically acclaimed best-selling author, business author. I've been on the Today Show, Rachel Ray, CNN, CNBC. I've been featured in USA Today, Forbes, Entrepreneur Inc., to name a few. And all of that was around my first business that I launched from my kitchen table when I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 little boys, one of whom was autistic. And I took my little kitchen table product I was making from my kids, coaches, and teachers to almost every retailer in America. I've raised angel capital from the Grand Angels, and then went on to design a designer line of pajamas for Saks Inc. And then the Great Recession happened, and I kind of lost everything like everybody else did, and I've reinvented myself and went out to Hollywood and started a production company, did it with Oprah. But I started doing business consulting, and 2 years ago, just 4 years ago, I was working with a guy out of New York who was developing stroboscopic technology for the consumer sporting goods market. And I came on as a co-founder of that company and partner, and next thing we knew, Steph Curry, the MVP of the NBA, was using our technology and raving about it in ESPN and GQ. Had 10 million views on ESPN alone. And then MIT published a study in Nature that showed that our same technology, stroboscopic technology, could reduce the plaque in the brain that causes Alzheimer's by up to 50%. So I founded my company, Hugenis, in February 2018. We have a patent that just published with 20 claims for designing utility protection. And we are in our first, we're raising a seed round, Series A round of 5 million right now. We've been talking to a lot of VC, but we've also had a lot of very interesting developments the last week from some global companies who are interested in our technology. So it's really exciting after 2 years of really hard work. And I'm just, you know, like any entrepreneur, every day is a new opportunity to succeed. Going out there and succeeding.
That's a nice way to put it. Every day is a new opportunity. There's those funny memes that are always running around where life of entrepreneur, and it's this graph. It's like you start at the beginning of the day and you're like, oh man, like this day, I'm so excited for today. And then it's like, oh, that was the best meeting. And oh, I'm going to be bankrupt next week. And oh no, never mind. I got that number wrong. I miscarried a 0. And then it's like that all day long until dinner. And then you're like, can't wait for tomorrow. That was an adventure.
Some of the greatest advice I ever got was don't confuse excitement with stress. You know, and the life of an entrepreneur is very exciting, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And yes, there's a lot of risk, but hey, that's the only way you get big reward. Yep. So, you know, just have to mitigate your risk.
And that's a really great place to land and introduce Lucinda, because we just learned before we hit record that after a very successful career in a lot of different very large scale enterprises, she decided to get into the startup world. So excited to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll let you do the same.
So following these two ladies is tough to go third. We have helping homeless people, you know, curing Alzheimer's, and then you have the world of distilled spirits and booze. So myself and 3 co-founders 2 years ago launched Cask and Kettle. And they are, it's a line of hard coffee and cider K-pods that fit in your Keurig machine, basically. It's liquid, the ingredients are liquid, so you don't actually have to have the Keurig machine, but that was the idea. And it really was the culmination. One of our co-founders said that all of our prior experiences were old, has helped us be able to launch this business. And I started out of Michigan State. My first job was working in supply chain for Whirlpool Corporation. Great company, learned a lot about operations, but really wanted to be in brand marketing. That was my dream. So after, a successful start at Whirlpool, I left, went back to Michigan State into the full-time MBA program and made the hard switch over to brand marketing, and Kellogg's gave me a shot at that as a marketing assistant. And I was just blessed from the beginning, frankly. My first brand was the launch of Nutri-Grain bars. And I also managed the innovation in the convenience foods division. So I was just really lucky right away. And then I worked on Raisin and Corn, did the upfront innovation job, managed the innovation team, worked in M&A. So I was a VP in 7 years and was at Kellogg just short of a decade. I also spent 5 or so years at Meijer. Those of you in Grand Rapids or throughout Michigan will be familiar with that. They asked me to come in and start up their own brand food innovation product development function. So anything that had a Meijer name on it or was part of the private label own brand business, I was responsible, which meant every category across the full spectrum of grocery. So every single category, we launched 300 to 600 new products a year. I traveled the world, set up the global sourcing for the company. It was a great 5 years and gave me a fabulous line of sight to lots of different enterprises. Then I moved to JPG Resources. The owner of JPG Resources and I worked together back at Kellogg's on the Kashi business. I ran the Kashi buy for Kellogg's, and he asked me to come in and lead the marketing, sales, innovation, and strategy practices at JPG. So it was at JPG. It's an innovation company. If you're into food and beverage, you've heard of it. Otherwise, it's a pretty covert company based out of Battle Creek. And the other co-founders are all JPG practice leaders. We were in sort of a tough budget meeting. I'm a coffee diva. We all love our cocktails in the afternoon. And I said, okay, this meeting would be going a lot better if this coffee were of the adult variety. Next thing you know, they're all riffing off of the idea. The meeting suddenly got better. And one of the co-founders said, I think we can do that. Like, I think I'm gonna go tinker with that. And he's sort of a MacGyver type. And he came back to me about 6 months later and said he thought he had it. And so that was that. And so 2 years ago, we launched Cask and Kettle. The spirits business is highly regulated. So for those of you who are entrepreneurs and launching in highly regulated spaces, I feel your pain. I have 2 years in. We're in 11 states. I sold into Walmart last summer. We have a meeting with them next Wednesday to talk expansion. I have a meeting with Meijer. We're at about 500 stores. It's a slow grind in a highly state-by-state regulated category. Less than 1% of the spirits businesses are owned and operated by women. So that's also makes the degree of difficulty interesting. So I'll leave it at that. That's probably enough background about where we are. Other than, I will say I've been married almost 39 years. And my husband's a superintendent of schools who does not drink, which makes it even more amusing that I run a booze business. Let me just throw that out there for a little.
Well, it's really interesting to see how, all three enterprises are born out of necessity, right? Whether it is that meeting where you're like, this meeting sucks.
It really sucked. It did. It really totally did.
But when we're constantly innovating, that's, we're always looking for these opportunities, right?
Right.
And so great. Again, thank you, all three of you. For those that are with us live here, so that's Pete, Karen, and Lisa. And for the others that do join us, if you have any specific questions on the things that we're talking about or on the backgrounds or the companies, feel free to pop those in the chat. We're totally having a nice casual conversation here, so we can, take a little turn if we need to. Anyway, so one of the challenges during this pandemic is that there is a really great opportunity for equity, whether it's gender equity, whatever, but it's not just going to be handed out, right? And so we must go out and take it and grab it. And as you brought up, Lucinda, there's already the market that you're in it's just a big wall in front of you, right? And every turn. the pandemic is not just affecting us in that way, but I'd like to talk in more general and then specific on the gender issues, if you're open and willing to identify those. In what ways in the last few months have you had to pivot what it is that you're doing currently in the stage? Now I know that you're in, I know Freshta, you just launched because of the pandemic and the represented need. And maybe I'll start backwards this time so that Freshta, if either of these other two entrepreneurs bring something to mind for you, maybe about like what your opportunities might be like or present to you. Because I know you talked about expanding your offerings and also bringing things that are more of the Afghani nature or origin. That brings to mind to me like supply chain. And then Lucinda seems to have some expertise there. So Lucinda, I'll let you start with that commentary.
Yeah, so in the food and beverage space, sampling is a vehicle that most companies use to drive trial in awareness. So a lot of companies really depend on sampling. Given the virus, guess what is no mask anywhere? And it's not going to come back for the balance of the year. I'm hearing, for instance, out of Costco, which really drives a lot of their business via sampling. They're now taking price increases because they got to make money some other way if they don't have velocity. And certainly when you're a small company like ours, and you have disruptive innovation, because we're the first global launch of a K-Pod hard coffee and cider. So all of the education and driving all of the awareness and trial falls on our tiny little shoulders. And now we can't put, a drink in someone's hand to sample. So like most food and beverage companies and even retailers, we've had to pivot on that and just reach deep and start to try to find scrappy ways to drive trial and awareness without that as a go-to. So in my space, that's one of the biggest impacts that we've had to pivot. And then someone just asked a question specifically on this too. It flashed up and then went, something about an update on sales for COVID. Do you see it? For some reason, I can't see the questions.
Not just sales, Lucinda, it was just give an update for the year. And you were kind of going into it, just how the year went and how COVID did impact just the whole sales distribution for you.
Yeah. So
alcohol, they say, went up. Everybody's sitting at home drinking and not getting out of their sweats, but
no. So we should be killing it for sure, because we're at home drinking. Again, disruptive. Right. We're not on premise. We're at home. We're hot for the most part, although you can go cold. Tricky piece is it's highly regulated. I can't sell to consumers or retailers. I'm forced to go through distributors legally. And the distributors are highly dependent on bars and restaurants. And I've been concerned that all of our distributors would actually go under. And all of their salespeople stop showing up to work and calling. So at the very time when, not that I want it, not that I would relish a tragedy, being a business driver, technically, logically, it should be for me. I should be like unbelievably on fire. The problem is I don't control my chain to the consumer. I don't control that. So there's been very little selling to zero. And what they are doing is pushing all the big guys. So if you're a Bacardi, you're a Tito's, you're whatever, then you're already in stock, then you're being pushed. And across food and beverages, stepping outside of booze even, I think we've all seen that. The big brands are the ones that have really suddenly resurged because they've been in trouble. If I were still at Kellogg's, this would, the last decade would have been highly, or even 20 years would have been highly problematic for me, because big brands have been on the decline and brands like us have been the shining stars. Not true. People pantry stocked, the online sales are really driven by big brands. So the big iconic brands have benefited tremendously during this crisis, and the small startups and entrepreneurial innovative companies have been hurt, exponentially. And I fall right into that.
Is there a way to become a distributor so you can solve that in a vertical? There's no way.
There's only
go ahead.
I'm curious. I mean, if you can't get it, can you become one and then you are it?
Like
California. Yeah, California.
Where you can have all 3 tiers of the
Look at you.
I know, he's good.
Who's experience? Wait a minute, Corey.
Yeah, well,
He's got the restaurant, right?
well, there's, I've also, so I have a long history in food innovation, definitely in the beverage space. I spent a lot of time there. And one of the reasons why I did move to California is so that I could
Self-distribute.
get into the self-distribute. Yeah, because I have family that owns a vineyard in winery in Europe. And I wanted to
Look
be
at you.
the importer, the retailer, but this show isn't about me. This is about you girls.
No. Great question though. So bottom line, all of the laws and regulations go back to prohibition. They're ancient. They're ridiculous. I actually thought the federal government wasn't even going to let us launch our business, and we had tens of thousands of dollars invested. The federal government wrote regulations around our launch because all of the current laws are around liquid in a bottle or in a can, and we're not that. And then state by state, it's been a trial. And the state of Michigan actually in January issued 3 orders, which would have delisted my entire business in the state of Michigan. I had to hire a lobbyist. I'm a tiny little company. I had to hire 2 lobbyists and go with them to the MLCC and make a case so that they didn't shut down my entire business in my home state. Now, to give the MLCC credit, they listened and they rescinded the orders. They made an exception that made sense for all of us and we're saved. But I almost lost everything in our own home state. So I just say that not even you sort of selfishly to my business, but to say to other entrepreneurs, these are the types of, mountains every day you just have to climb. I mean, every time the phone rings, it can be, okay, your entire business home state is gone. Boom, you have till May. It's just, it is a marathon, and you have to push through every day, and it's certainly not an easy gig for sure.
And we understand as entrepreneurs, especially seasoned ones, that risk is stuff that we can't see coming, right? Some people confuse what risk really is in their businesses. And to your point on regulation, that is typically a very scary word, especially for early entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But if you don't go to them and ask, you'll never know. The MLCC, before I left for California, I got a liquor license fast track because I brought the office pizza. You're not supposed to do that, but so yeah, those are some clear challenges, and I know that we could have 2 hours talking about that. And then for Kim, we were talking before we hit record, this pandemic in some ways has been an opportunity to really level the playing field on access to the people who hold the capital you're seeking, right?
Right. I mean, when at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought, oh, geez, okay, I've spent 2 years founding this company, and now I have to raise money in the midst of a global pandemic. I mean, how much harder can this get? And I was, I had a lot of fear and anxiety for my family and my personal health, just like everybody else. And then, I just would get up in the morning and just make myself go and crush it every day. I mean, I could just have laid in bed and worried, or I could have been consumed with news, but, I turned that all off and just said, you know what, I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other and just go out there and sell and pitch and prospect as much as I can. And I couldn't believe the almost instant momentum I started to gain. And so one of the first things that happened is, we're bringing a patent pending non-drug treatment for Alzheimer's to market. And one of the things that's come first to mind during this whole pandemic is the vulnerabilities in our current healthcare system. And, the whole idea of a telemedicine platform having to appear magically and take care of millions of people across America where it didn't exist just weeks before was something that was both a challenge and an opportunity. And we, part of our product, is not just a wearable technology component, but also a patent pending doctor-patient platform that gives doctors the ability to provide one-stop care for Alzheimer's patients. So next thing I knew, whenever I wanted to pitch a VC, my deck got downloaded. We had over 150 downloads of our deck in 2 weeks with an 85% click rate of some of the top VCs in the country. And, you know, we thought, geez, if this were not the pandemic, we would have to pay money to fly out to San Francisco or New York and get in front of these people and do the conventional pitch, whereas we were just doing it from Zoom, which was the great equalizer, because we didn't have to have an old boys network in Silicon Valley. We didn't have to be out there. We could pitch via Zoom, and it cost us almost nothing. So, you know, that was great. And then the whole opportunity.
Kim, can I ask before you move on the topic, did you use a particular platform to make people aware of your deck? Did you go?
I use Founder Suite right now. Founder Suite is great for any entrepreneurs that are listening who are raising capital. You know, you think you go out to 1 or 2 VC and you're, you know, oh my God, nobody's going to invest in my company. Oh no, you know, I mean, sales is a numbers game. The wider you cast your net, the more sales prospects you're going to make. I pitched 200 VCs, okay? And together with Crunchbase is really a great resource to, you know, really want to find out, you know, if a VC is investing in your stage, you know, whether it's pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, Series B, whether they're investing in your product category. We're a digital health company, and, you know, want to know, are they, you know, you can look up on Crunchbase, have they done any deals in the last couple of years? Who are they investing in? What size are their rounds? And then Founder Suite is just like a CRM that helps you manage it. And, you know, we've had at least 5 or 6 pitches. We've had 1 commitment from a follow-on VC already. And we have more, we're still putting together meetings, which was really exciting, because, you know, everybody thought, oh my God, nobody's going to be investing. But, you know, all of these VCs, they have money. This money they raised last year, it's in the pipeline. They have to commit. And a lot of these companies, you know, a lot of companies have tanked because of the coronavirus the last year. You know, anything that's related to travel or, you know, cars or any, you know, they have to find new profit centers. They're desperate. They need to recover, just like a lot of other businesses, VCs. You know, they have to cover their losses by investing in new successful businesses. So then the whole deal of educating VC about our product, you know, it's very complex, and yet it's simple to explain, but the science behind it is complex, and it's hard to, you know, in a half-hour pitch, get everything across. So I think that just finding the right partner, and this is another thing, I think everybody's just happy to get money from anybody. You know, you really need to get money from a VC who's going to bring some value add to your business. And believe me, I don't think many of them offer much, but you know, you want them to at least be enthusiastic and supportive and know something about your business. So it's been a great time of opportunity for us. You know, right now, Alzheimer's is the next global epidemic that's going to happen. In just 3, you know, right now there's 46 million Alzheimer's sufferers globally, and that number is going to explode to 165 million by 2050. But in America, in 3 years, 1 in 3 seniors will die from Alzheimer's or dementia-related causes. And there's no, you know, drugs don't work. They only treat the symptoms, not the cause. And 2 major pharmaceutical companies had their drugs fail in stage 3 clinical testing last year. So there's nothing new in the pipeline for 7 years. And frontline, the doctors who are handling Alzheimer's patients on the front line are just general practitioners. They're not trained to handle Alzheimer's. There's no way we can prepare medical staff in 3 years to handle the avalanche of Alzheimer's patients we're going to have. So we find that we're in the right place at the right time, fingers crossed, to bring a real meaningful solution that can reduce the plaque in the brain that causes Alzheimer's by up to 50%. And we can have product in the marketplace as early, potentially, as 4th quarter of this year.
Wow.
It's a really amazing product and business. I've been really excited to hear about your progress.
Thank you.
And then I first met you through introduction from a friend, and I had found out that you and I were at Startup Grind Global together, but we didn't know each other.
Yeah, that's too bad, because Startup Grind Global is fantastic. It was just the best conference I've ever been to, and anybody who I would just urge everybody to go to Startup Grind Global and get involved. It was amazing. It was just mind blowing.
So the Startup Grind Global is an annual conference in the Bay Area in February, and pre-pandemic, those are the things you would go to as conferences, right? Like that's how you would reach outside of your region before like the land of Zoom and pandemic. But now you wouldn't need to go to like a conference at least, but at least our network is still here. And what we see is Startup Grind, because we are a global organization, is that sure, supply chains are shrinking, right? So sometimes some of those things, especially textiles, can be difficult to attain. Durable goods, we're seeing some increase in pricing in copper, so we like that for like what that means for manufacturing in the near future. But what's globalizing are ideas and capital. Investors are eager to spread their money around in different regions, and they're excited to be able to see things that are coming out of different regions. Startup Grind here in the region here, the guys down in Chicago and myself, we're getting phone calls from international investors saying, what's happening in your region? These are the kind of things that we're looking for. And Kim, to your point, you're kind of suggesting that the stage that you're in, and now that you kind of have like a global phone book that you can go to, this is kind of like running an enterprise sales campaign. Like you really have to know who you're selling to, right?
Right. It's you know, we're a digital consumer health product. We're consumer facing. So we don't have a very hard sell, I don't think, because people are desperate. Our product costs are on average $2,500 with a $50 a month subscription rate, where average Alzheimer drug cost is $450. The average out-of-pocket cost, Lucinda, you were telling me about your grandmother, I'm so sorry to hear about. The average out-of-pocket cost by caregivers for Alzheimer's patients over the life of the disease is $250,000. So the need is so great. People are so desperate for our product. And we believe, we are initially positioning ourselves to be distributed through CVS. CVS just created a mandate to bring like 2,000 health hub stores which is basically an in-store clinic at retail locations across the country. They're going to do that by 2022. So we feel that that's the best way for us to distribute our product. We are offering a $200 billion retailing opportunity for retailers, in a market where people are desperate. So right now we're really focused on raising the capital. You have to be single-minded about that. And, our patent just published. We spent a lot of time writing our patent. And so but then we get a call from a
Hey Kim, any Medicare or reimbursement issues associated with the product?
So right now it is a process. Okay, so right now we're classified as a FDA Class 1 medical device, which is equivalent to dental floss. So all we need to do is pay $1,600 to the FDA. They approve 95% of all Class 1 applications within 6 months maximum. And we've already contracted with a global company that helps people negotiate this process. And they're like, no problem. So after we get into the marketplace, then we have to start to create that partnership with Medicare and Medicaid. And that is like third or fourth year, right? But right now we believe that we just need to sell them to 32 stores our first year to hit our first year sales goals of $7 million. So we're just staying focused on that. But obviously that is a third year goal.
And and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Medicare and Medicaid in the future of health.
Well, Alzheimer's will bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid. They will bankrupt it if we don't do something.
I want to move on to Freshta here. Now we have challenge, opportunity somewhat there, and now Freshta, this idea was born out of like seeing a need and an opportunity there, and now you're you said that you're pivoting a little bit. Now you have the online store. I just read something really cool about this new customer segment called the Carlies, and that's can't afford real life yet. And they are like these, you know, this young segment, you know, like mid-20s, mid-30s, and they are really honing into like the maker lifestyle. So that people just like you marketing the products like you're marketing them for, purpose-driven makers. So this is like right time, but also a pretty big, busy market. Maybe you could talk to us about, you know, maybe a little bit more about the challenges getting started, or maybe the demands, or not, maybe it was so easy. Just tell us a bit more about what's going on and where you're headed.
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest challenges was that I was a full-time student, you know, just being super busy. And then, you know, on top of that, I'm a global human rights activist. So, you know, being an activist, that takes a lot of time because there are so many different problems happening around the world constantly, you know, especially in my homeland. You know, there are issues, you know, about gender rights, there's education, terrorism, you know, there are so many things happening that, you know, that my mind is, you know, constantly going to different places. And so on top of, you know, trying to study and keeping up, you know, my grades and everything else. So it was definitely very hard. And also, you know, like growing up, my mom always, you know, taught me that a human life is a lot more valuable than, you know, than something that you can do later on. And so, you know, and then like just with my, you know, my personal story, just being homeless, you know, I know how it's like to not have, you know, the support that you need. You know, being an independent homeless student, it was very hard to, you know, continuously, you know, have a place to go, you know, during breaks, like when like at Calvin, when, you know, breaks would start, sometimes I didn't know where to go. And so I know what it was like. And so, you know, having a family here that right now, you know, cares for me, I could only imagine what those, you know, homeless community was going through. And I just wanted to reach out. And so I guess the only challenge when I started doing that was that I didn't have the materials that I needed. And so that's why I started using my pile of Goodwill clothes and my basic skill that I had learned back at home of just sewing. And so I started making masks and sewing them. And it did take a lot of time and effort. But, you know, I wanted to see if I can save any lives, if there was any way that I could impact one life, two lives, as many as I could. And so, you know, putting in a lot of time into that, but then also trying to find enough material while all the stores were closed and all the online stores were running out of supplies that I needed. So that was kind of challenging, but you know, there were so many other solutions that I reached out to, and there were people donating, you know, their sheets, their curtains, their clothes, and it was just a blessing to see how many people were trying to contribute to the cause that I really wanted to pursue. And with this, I, you know, I started sharing all these other products that I was making, and a lot of people have been just encouraging me to, you know, continue making other products that they really want to see and purchase, and continue to help support the mission of So True. And so that's what I've been doing, and I hope to bring in more of the Afghan heritage into it, because I feel like there are so many stereotypes about Afghanistan, and not a lot of people see the you know, the side that's not all about war, that's not all about the negative things, because, you know, Afghanistan has a lot of beauty in it, whether it's the culture, the language, and everything else. And so through the business, I also hope to, you know, spread awareness about the Afghan culture, and hopefully seeing that if I can, you know, break any of the stereotypes that people hold.
Yes.
I just have to take a minute and just tell her I'm very inspired by your story. You should lead with that story. It's, you know, being homeless. It's just, wow. Congratulations. Go for it, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
It's incredible. Like when as entrepreneurs, we come from our own perspective, right? And that does lead into this idea of stereotypes and stigma. We just have a little bit of time left here, and this is where I like to ask our panelists to offer some advice to, and in this case, it's going to be to other female founders, entrepreneurs, maybe people that are in the same stage as you're in, or maybe you can dig deep, and or maybe you don't have to dig deep, probably not, on what some of the larger challenges that you personally went through, on maybe some recommendations or advice on how to push through those. And specifically, I think that the stigma and just, the access, right, that we have. There are dozens and dozens of resources available here in the Michigan, not just Midwest Michigan, but yeah, there's dozens and dozens of women-focused resources that anyone listening to this podcast can reach out to me, and I have a long list, personal contacts that I'll give anybody and everybody. But now I'm interested to hear from the three of you specifically, some recommendations or just general advice for our founders in the audience. And maybe we'll start the first way around again. So Freshta.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice, or I guess the main target that I want to, the main audience that I want to get this to is, I guess, the young entrepreneurs, especially our female entrepreneurs who are just starting, especially if they're students. I think a lot of young people don't realize that their basic skills are great assets that they can, start using. I was a career ambassador at Calvin, and we would do all these workshops about the skills that you need to succeed in the employment force. And it was very, I guess, surprising to me that a lot of young people didn't know that with their basic skills, they could, do great things. And so that's one area that I would, love for the young people to really look into. But then on top of that, there's so many different resources around you, and, there's so many different issues that are happening, but there are also so many different solutions that we can come up with, whether it has to do with social justice or other areas that we need to bring improvement and advancement, and whether it has to do with technology or, just other areas. And I just, when a lot of young people reach out to me about, not being able to do it because they're alone and they don't know how to start it or where to start it, I always, suggest that they reach out to a mentor or somebody that they really look up to start it, because it is kind of a scary journey. When you start it, it's really hard to take that step on your own, but, you just take that step and reach out to someone that will support you and will be there, but then also reach out to all the other different resources that you have to start that journey.
That's a really great advice. Also, one reason why I'm really thankful to have you here is because it is important that everyone sees success stories, people that look like them, that sound like them, that come from similar places, and just to see that as an example is really important. And I know that can sometimes feel like a burden when we're so busy as entrepreneurs already, but it's truly inspirational for others. So thank you very much for being willing to do that for everyone else. Kim?
The best advice I can give every entrepreneur is to, always lead with your passion. Never apologize for being passionate. A lot of times women don't want to appear emotional, and, just go out there and own your emotions and go after what you want unapologetically and be greedy. Women own 48% of all businesses in America. And, I've been repeating this fact for over 10 years now. It just doesn't change. Only 3% of women-owned businesses have revenues of $1 million or more a year. And because most directly related to the fact that women only raise 2% private equity or venture capital or invest institutional money out there to run and grow their businesses. And I was passionate about helping level that playing field for many years, and worked with some very big organizations like GE Capital and Coca-Cola, and that was the whole premise of my show that we were going to develop with Oprah. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's an investor in a VC in Kalamazoo, and I said, listen, you know, if I get, he said, listen, I'm going to make $100 million commitment to funding women-owned businesses. You know, you just bring the women. It's not about women, it's about money. Don't make it about women, make it about money. So I think, you know, I've helped women raise capital in the past, and they don't think they deserve it, or they don't look at the, you know, the picture. They don't think that they're going to have a voice or a door open for them at VCs. And you just have to go bust down that door, because they're there listening and waiting for you. This guy in Kalamazoo who was ready to commit $100 million told me no women have ever pitched him. So how's he supposed to give money to women if they don't pitch him? So just go out there and don't undercapitalize your business. You know, don't, you know, ask for the money you absolutely need. Don't think, oh, 2 million's too much. No, look at your numbers. What's the hard numbers? How much money do you need to ensure that your business runs successfully, and ask for that amount. And go out there and knock on every door until it opens for you. And don't be afraid of being pushy or passionate, because that's what gets things done.
Absolutely. Also, really tremendous advice. The thing that we call imposter syndrome is really real for entrepreneurs at every stage. We look around and we're like, I don't belong here. And we just, what I do is, a friend told me a little while ago, give whatever that emotion is a name, and then tell that Bob to like, shut up. Like,
Right.
shut up.
Yeah. You have to do a self-talk every day. One great woman entrepreneur, I can't remember her name, said, you know, you have to be almost pathologically positive. You know, you just have to just not let negative self, you know, I always say it's easy to be negative. It's hard to be positive. Just be a positive, big picture person every day, and you will succeed. You know, you just gotta give yourself that self-talk every day.
Yeah, and if anyone needs a network or needs to plug in, that's what Startup Grind is there for. We are that network. We operate, especially here in Michigan, to be that connective tissue between all of the excellent resources that are available, and then also individuals, because it's people like Kim and Freshta and Lucinda and then Karen, who's on the call here, that you run into. And the first thing that you will hear when you walk into a meeting or a Zoom room is how can I help you? that's our whole credo. To finish things up with the recommendations there, Lucinda.
So what's interesting is I strongly agree with both of my preceding founders and CEOs here. And to put even a finer point on it, I think it's, you know, not very sexy, you know, not very complicated, my advice, but it is to find someone who will support you so you don't feel crazy. I, every week in one company's case, 2 women CEOs of different companies. One I talk to every Friday at 9 o'clock, the other one every other Thursday at 8:30, because I'm that for them. And while I love all of the men in my world who support me, there is something special about having another woman who knows what it's like to walk in your shoes, to be there to tell you you're not crazy. You're not crazy. It is hard. You're not crazy. It's okay to be passionate, and you should be unadulteratedly you. You're not crazy. Yeah, you may have to do it yourself and not delegate it, because no one's going to want it more than you want it. So if you want to be successful, you've got to grab, you know, all of those things. So it's not to say that I don't have wonderful, you know, young people, older people, men, you know, people of all different expertise and experiences in my life supporting me. I do, and I'm blessed that way. But what's critical is another woman who gets me, understands what I'm trying to accomplish, and their only role is to be there, let me vent, to get all the negative out so that your team doesn't see it, and you do let it go, because it's only human to have those, but just to raise you up. So not complicated, but that I couldn't do without that.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Karen, but maybe you know, you might have a recommendation for female women founders. And
I agree with all of the above, because as a small business owner, investor, looking as I was communicating a little bit on the chat, and will be raising money myself for a group, I sit in all of your shoes, I think. So, I think somehow you have to carve out your own space too. I think sometimes I find walks with the dog are one of the best things, or a shower, somehow things just kind of come to you. They settle, they just kind of, you are able to sit, think clear in some quiet time. And it's not always that big, have to be a meditative state, but sometimes just, the breeze off the lake or the sounds, things just kind of settle. So somewhere along the way, you just need to, center yourself for things and keep going. So much the same like Lucinda's saying, and Kim.
I do have one funny story, if you find it funny, about the whole woman CEO founder thing. Our packaging company, when we launched, wasn't getting the graphics just right. And I was, but our COO was handling that communication, and he had to do something. Had to do something. And so I stepped in during one meeting, and the packaging, group just would not listen to me. And they finally just came out and said, well, your boss, Pete, told us X, Y, Z. And I was like, oh yeah. So to this day, I hassle Pete about, I'm like, I don't know, Pete, like, you're the boss. So he was mortified when I later about, hey, I guess they're only going to take direction from you because you're my boss, so to speak. So that happens all the time. I mean, and I usually am the only woman in any meeting, at any table, in any pitch, in any room. And I'm used to that over my career, by the way.
It is great packaging though.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, it is great. I'm taking some tomorrow night to someone, so in case
I persevered and got them to listen to me. But I turned 58, next month, and I keep thinking at this stage of my career, it's really actually disappointing that I still have to pioneer, this hard. But hey. Someone's gotta, be tough and do it. So I guess that's me. But back to the funny. I just really said it to just be more funny. That Pete's the boss of me. And
sometimes things kind of have to be funny to stomach them, right?
Yeah.
But, and it's strange that that's a story that would have been told in the 1950s. Yet it's 2020. And it's not just important that women advocate for themselves and for other women, but then it's, everyone needs to advocate for everybody. Men specifically need to advocate for women. And every marginalized population. If a guy like me, a white dude, 44 years old, looks left and right and across the table, and it's other white dudes, one of us has to just get up and I don't know, pull someone up, get someone out here, because if the room looks like you're not doing it right. And that's in ideas, that's everything. That's just, so it's our responsibility to do that. It's everyone's responsibility. So anyway, I don't know. Pete, you're the last one who hasn't said anything. Do you have any recommendations? Not to put this on two white dudes talking.
yeah, that's a good setup for the white guy, the white older guy. No, so my background is supply chain. Lucinda, good to see you. I heard you speak up here in Traverse City and in the pitch, and have been down to see you guys in Battle Creek. No, I think Kim, you said it really well, and I've been on the consulting, but also on the angel investing side of startups, and people have asked me, how do you choose a really successful business? And the first thing is you got to have a product or service that's got a value prop that's definable. And then I'm looking at the CEO. And I don't care if the CEO is male, female, black, white, Indian, etc. Doesn't matter. I'm looking at the CEO, and one of the high qualities that the angel community should be looking at, not all do, but should be, is what's the passion? Are they going to stay with this, or are they going to bail when things get tough within the first year? Because your dollars, your investment dollars are at stake, and we're entrusting investment dollars to you, the CEOs. So that passion and that ability to stay with it and the belief system and what you're doing is really important from an angel investing perspective. And that's regardless of male or female CEO.
I'm personally biased towards female founders and owners. as a consultant and someone who spends a lot of time mentoring, the women founders and CEOs are the ones more often than ever like come back being like ready for the next step. Let's go. Let's rock this. That's just a fact. And it doesn't surprise me that organizations like McKinsey find that women just make better leaders or better owners. That's not the case every single time, but that's just the way it flushes out, right?
Well, Kaufman Foundation says that women deliver on average 20% higher returns.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's an objective measurement they've made. So I always say, why aren't more men, why can't VC invest in women then, if it's about money?
Well, I think a lot of them are, and this is not for everybody, but a lot of them are like your friend. They're like, well, no one came to me. Well, that's
right.
Not enough, right? That's not answering the, well, what are you doing today to make things different?
And I think it's legitimate for a woman to ask a VC, are you investing in women? Yep. And if not, why not?
Mm-hmm.
On the VC side too, I think part of the difficulty there too is, yes, we've got to overcome the, apologetic thing. I overcame that decades ago, but I get that, my gender struggles with that. But the other part of the investor world is it is complicated. And if you aren't plugged into, that's why I specifically asked Kim to, talk further about how she, what platform she used or whatever. Because if you're not connected into that, and it tends to be an old boy network, it just does, I'm just going to call it what it is. If you're not part of that, that's a real problem. So part of it is we're maybe not aggressive in going after the money. It's not my particular problem, but I can see how it would be. For me, the bigger problem is just knowing where the money is and being able to navigate the waters to connect to it, to have a shot, to be in front of, like Pete was saying, we were on the stage at TC and making the pitch. I have no problem if someone tells me no, if I at least got in the room to make the pitch. I can hear no, I don't have a high need for agreement, but boy, is it tough to navigate and know where that money is to even just get in the room.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Kim, one comment following up with what Kim said, the VC and angel groups themselves struggle with a little good old boy network amongst themselves. The amount of women in the Michigan Angel Fund, the Grand Angels, the Northern Michigan Angels, et cetera, et cetera. The number of women in those groups is a low percentage. So I like the fact that there are a number of women owned and organized VCs and angel funds that are cropping up around the state and the region as well. So those are also resources that Corey, I'm sure you know about, that you can send folks to, but they're gonna look at women-owned businesses first in their business.
Yeah, our number one investor is a women-owned, is the Bell.
Yeah, well known.
Yeah.
Sharp professionals.
Yep. And they have that mentoring sort of support, back of the house stuff too.
I need to wrap this up.
Yep.
And one last comment is just like we're better together. And so please, if you need anything, reach out. It's Corey, Corey at startupgrind.com or just startupgrind.com and ask anybody you find on that website, and you'll get the outpouring of help and support that you need. So with that, maybe a virtual round of applause for everybody. Thanks so much for your time, and really grateful. Have a good rest of your evening, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks
Corey.
Thanks
for hosting us. It was great. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SGWomen Leaders Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more who represent our community all around the world. This month's SGWomen Month is proudly presented by Google for Startups and Silicon Valley Bank.